There's a moment, maybe you've had it, when someone cuts you off in traffic, when a colleague throws a passive, aggressive comment in a meeting, when someone online says something just to provoke you and you feel it. That heat, that tightness in your chest, that immediate urge to react. We live in a world where everyone wants your attention. Not just brands and social media, but street people, friends, families pushing buttons. Everyone is pushingly or unknowingly. And here's the truth, if you don't train yourself to get unbothered, you'll spend your whole life reacting instead of leading. Let me tell you about a friend of mine. Let's call him James. He was brilliant, talented, but a natural leader, but he had one weakness: to take everything personally. A critical email would derail his whole day. A skeptical look at a meeting would plant seeds of self-doubt. He was always fighting fires, most of which only existed in his head. Emotional control is one of the most underrated yet powerful forms of leadership. It doesn't show up in job titles or LinkedIn bios, but it reveals itself in moments of tension, uncertainty, and conflict. It's in those crucial moments, when others panic, lash out, or shut down, that a true leader emerges, not by being louder, faster, or more forceful, but by remaining composed. We've been conditioned to associate leadership with charisma, decisiveness, and bold action. Those qualities have their place. But leadership isn't just about being the first to speak or the one with the grandest vision. It's about creating safety in chaos. It's about being the calm in the storm so others can think clearly. When people feel supported and stable in your presence, they will follow you not out of obligation, but out of trust. Think about it. Anyone can react when triggered. It takes no effort to snap back when you feel insulted or to escalate a tense conversation. That's default behavior. What separates leaders from followers is the use not to default. It's a decision to pause instead of pounce, to reflect or to retaliate. It's the ability to manage your own emotions so that others don't have to manage you. When a leader loses control, the room loses direction. People start to question, are we still safe? Are we still okay? Do they know what they're doing? Emotional instability at the top creates insecurity throughout the team. But when a leader maintains composure, even in the face of adversity, that calm becomes contagious. It doesn't mean the problem disappears, but it reassures people. We're going to navigate this. We're not responding. And that's the distinction. Reaction is immediate and often driven by a fear or anger. Response, on the other hand, is intentional. It's not about suppression. It's not an expression with purpose. Emotional control doesn't mean you don't feel things. It means you don't become them. You acknowledge frustration without letting it turn into fury. You experience disappointment without letting it spiral into blame. You own your emotions, but they don't own you. This kind of discipline doesn't just benefit you. It shapes the culture around you. Teams mirror the emotional tone set by their leaders. If you panic, they panic. If you gossip, they gossip. If you remain grounded, they learn to ground themselves too. Emotional control isn't just personal development, it's organizational development. It affects morale, trust, decision-making, and resilience. The most respected leaders aren't the ones who dominate a room. They're the ones who center it. They walk in and bring presence, not pressure. They listen more than they speak. And when they do speak, it's not to impress, but to align. Their control over themselves allows others to feel safe enough to be honest, creative, and bold. Training yourself to get unbothered isn't about detachment. It's about self-mastery. It's about knowing your pattern, understanding your patterns, and choosing your behavior rather than being run by emotions. It's a lifelong practice. And like any muscle, the more you work at it, the stronger it gets. At the end of the day, people may forget what you said or did in a meeting, but they'll remember how they felt around you. If they felt steadiness, clarity, and confidence, then you led. And you led not just with ideas, but with your presence. That's emotional control, and that's leadership. Not every battle is yours to fight. This simple truth, once fully understood, can transform how you move through the world. Too often, we waste our energy to prove a point, defend ourselves, or correct every misunderstanding that comes our way. We jump into debates that go nowhere, take on problems that don't belong to us, and carry burdens we were never meant to hold. The result: burnout, frustration, resentment, and worst of all, distraction from what truly matters. There's a subtle kind of wisdom in restraint. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand to be noticed. It simply knows what to engage with and what to walk past. When you realize that not every conflict requires your participation, you begin to conserve your energy for the things that count. You stop trying to win arguments that cost more than they're worth. You let go of the need to always be understood by everyone, and you begin to prioritize your peace over pride. It takes strength to stay silent when someone tries to provoke you. It takes maturity to let someone else be wrong without needing to correct them. That's not weakness. It means you've grown past the need to constantly defend your identity or prove your value. You already know who you are, and that knowledge is armor. People will misunderstand you. They will misconstrue you. They'll project their own fears, frustrations, and insecurities onto you. And sometimes they'll want to drag you into their storm, not because they're malicious, they're unsettled. But when you've trained yourself to stay grounded, you can stand in the middle of chaos and still choose calm. You realize that engaging every battle isn't always a sign of courage, it's often a sign of compulsion. The truth is, life is noisy, opinions are everywhere, emotions run high. And if you don't learn to filter what deserves your attention, you'll spend your days reacting instead of living. You'll constantly feel pulled into conflict, and your mind will be cluttered with battles that serve no purpose. That's no way to live. That's survival mode, not leadership, not peace. Some battles, the ones aligned worth fighting with your values, the ones that protect others, that lead to real growth, real justice, or real change. But those are the exceptions, not the norm. Most battles are distractions. They're emotional traps that pull you away from your purpose and your peace. And learning to recognize them and to walk away from power is an act to comment on every post. You don't have to respond to every slight. You don't have to carry every conflict home with you. You are allowed to say, "This isn't mine," and let it go. That doesn't make you passive. It makes you intentional. You start to ask better questions. Does this matter in the long run? Does this reflect the person I want to be? Is engaging here going to improve anything or just stir up more noise? These questions are tools. They help you navigate life with clarity. They help you choose your battles wisely, which means you get to show up with full strength when it really counts. Protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's essential. Because when you're clear, centered, and focused, you're far more capable of making a difference. You can't do that if you're constantly being pulled into skirmishes that don't align with your purpose. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. Your value isn't found in how many battles you win. It's found in how well you lead yourself. Choose wisely. Walk away often. Not every battle is yours to fight, and that's where real power begins. Reaction is instance is power, and that simple gap difference lies the gap between clarity, between regret and wisdom, between simply existing and truly leading. We all react. It's human, it's fast, automatic, and often fueled by emotion. Someone says something offensive, and we snap. A situation feels unfair, and we vent. A plan goes off course, and we panic. It's our nervous system trying to protect and make sense of a perceived threat. But the trouble with reaction is that it's not always rooted in truth. It's often rooted in fear. The instinct to react is primal. It helped our ancestors survive danger. But in modern life, the threats are different. They're not predators lurking in the dark. They're criticism, respect, failure, rejection. And while the instinct to defend ourselves kicks in just fast, it rarely leads to something useful. A reaction might feel good in the moment. It gives a sense of release, control, or satisfaction. But later, we often look back and think, I could have handled that better. That's because reactions aren't on reflection. They're based on impulse. Response, on the other hand, requires space. It's the pause between stimulus and action. It's the breath you take before replying to that heated email. It's the moment you choose to listen rather than interrupt. It's when you ask yourself, what's really going on here? Before jumping to conclusions, that space gives you power, the power to choose how you show up, not just how you feel. This isn't about being robotic or emotionally flat. It's not about suppressing your feelings. It's about mastering them. Feeling something doesn't mean you must act on it immediately. Emotions are data, not directives. They're signals, not commands. They can guide your decisions, but they shouldn't dictate them. When you learn to feel fully and respond wisely, you become the kind of person others trust in difficult situations, not because you always know what to do, but because you don't make things worse. Think of the leaders, mentors, or friends you admire. Chances are they're not the ones who always had the loudest voice or the fastest reaction. They're the ones who stayed grounded when things got tense. They asked questions before making judgments. They remained steady when everyone else lost composure. That kind of presence doesn't come from instinct. It comes from discipline, from choosing again and again to lead with response over reaction. Training yourself to respond instead of react is like building a muscle. It takes repetition awareness. It takes moments of getting it wrong and learning from them. You begin to notice your triggers. You learn what sets you off and practice pausing before diving in. You develop the habit of checking your thoughts before you speak them. And slowly your instinct starts to shift, not but to reflect. This shift has a ripple effect. When you respond instead of react, you invite others to do the same. Create space for healthier conversations, for solutions instead of blame, for clarity instead of confusion. You stop feeding drama and start fostering growth. You become a thermostat, not a thermometer, setting the tone instead of absorbing it. You can't control every situation. People will push your buttons. Life will throw curveballs. But you can control who you are in the face of those challenges. Reaction is easy. Anyone can do that. Response takes strength. Response is maturity. Response is leadership, and the more you practice it, the more you're powerful you become. Most triggers aren't about you. This is a truth that becomes clearer the more you observe human behavior. People are constantly reacting, but what they're reacting to is often rooted in their own inner world. Past wounds, unmet expectations, insecurities or fears that have little or nothing to do with you. When those reactions are directed your way, it's easy to absorb them, to take them personally, and to believe that you're the cause of someone else's emotional turbulence. We've been conditioned to see ourselves at the center of every interaction. If someone is cold, we assume we upset them. If they're rude, we wonder what we did wrong. If they ignore us, we create stories in our minds about why we're not enough. But the truth is, most people are far too consumed with their own thoughts to be focused on you. Their actions tone, and reactions are often reflections of what's happening inside them, not a direct commentary on your worth or your character. Think about it. How many times have you snapped at someone not because of what they did, but because you were tired, stressed, anxious, or carrying some unseen frustration? In those moments, who the other person wasn't the treaty near, they were simply nearby. The same applies in reverse. People are living through things you know nothing about. A harsh tone might come from a fight they had earlier. A short temper might be rooted in years of feeling unheard. You may be standing in front of them, but you're not the one they're reacting to. Not really. Once you realize this, it becomes easier to detach emotionally from other people's behaviors. You stop carrying the weight of every negative glance, every curt message, every moment of silence. You begin to understand that someone else's reaction doesn't need your analysis or your emotional labor. You don't have to internalize their storm. You can let it pass without stepping into it. This awareness creates emotional freedom. You become less reactive and more reflective. You give yourself a moment to pause and ask, is this really about me? That pause can save you from unnecessary conflict, hurt feelings, or overthinking. It allows you to protect your peace without becoming cold or disconnected. You can still care, but from a place of understanding, not obligation. At the same time, this awareness fosters compassion. When you stop taking things personally, we're more likely to see the pain behind someone's anger, the fear behind their control, the insecurity behind their criticism. It doesn't mean you excuse poor behavior, but it does mean you stop making it about you. You set bounds, not walls. It's a respond, not react. It's a practice. You won't always get it right. Some days, a small comment will get under your skin. Some moments will trigger old wounds of your own. But the more you practice seeing beyond the surface, the more emotionally intelligent and grounded you become. You start to recognize that the world isn't always reflecting who you are. It's often reflecting what others are trying to heal. And that shift changes everything. You no longer need to defend yourself against every misunderstanding. You don't have to fix how others feel. You stop taking ownership of emotions that were never yours. You reclaim your energy and your focus. You move with more clarity, more peace, and more strength. Most triggers aren't about you. They're about something much deeper in someone else's story. When you understand that, you stop being controlled by every emotional wave around you, and you begin to live, not in reaction, but in response, rooted in self-awareness and peace. Perspective destroys overreaction. It's not that emotions are wrong or that feeling deeply is a flaw. It's that unchecked emotions can distort our perception of reality. When we're caught in a moment of stress, anger, fear, or frustration, everything feels urgent, personal, and overwhelming. That's where overreaction thrives. We escalate situations, assume the worst, and make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. But with a shift in perspective, the intensity softens. The emotion doesn't disappear, but it becomes manageable. You gain space to think clearly, to breathe, and to choose a better response. Perspective gives us the power to zoom out. It helps ask the critical question, is this as big as it feels right now? Often, the answer is no. What feels like a crisis today is forgotten a week from now. The email that upset you this morning, in 2 days, it won't matter. That awkward conversation, the missed call, then the off-on comment, none of it carries the weight our mind attaches in the heat of the moment. But we can't see that when we're right up against it. The ability to pause and reframe is what separates reaction from wisdom. Perspective is also about seeing the full picture, not just the moment that's in front of you. People are layered. Situations are complex, as rarely as black and white as our initial feelings suggest. Maybe the person who snapped at you is under pressure you know nothing about. Maybe the delay, the disappointment, the disruption was actually a redirection. When you practice holding space for more than one possibility, you stop assuming that every negative moment is a personal attack or a permanent problem. One of the most effective ways to gain perspective is time. Simply giving yourself a few hours or even a few minutes to step away from a situation can dramatically change how you see it. What felt unbearable at 9 a.m. feels manageable by lunch. That's not because the facts change, it's because your mindset did. You thought it down, and from that calmer place, solutions emerged that were invisible when emotions were in control. Another powerful tool is empathy. When you try to see things from another person's point of view, overreaction loses its grip. You begin to understand that their behavior, while frustrating, might not be malicious, where words are harsh might come from. Empathy doesn't mean you excuse behavior. It means you stop fueling your reaction with assumptions. You leave room for complexity, and that room allows your emotions to settle. Perspective also means remembering who you are. We often forget our values. We say things we don't mean, act out of character, or let temporary emotions damage long-term relationships. But when we hold on to perspective, we act with intention, not impulse. We remember what actually matters and what doesn't. We choose our battles, protect our peace. The truth is, most things are not worth the emotional energy we give them. Most situations don't require a meltdown. They require a moment of reflection. Most people's behavior is about them, not you. And most problems, when looked at from a wider lens, are solvable, or simply not as significant as they first appeared. Perspective doesn't eliminate emotion. It guides it. It tells you, feel what you feel, but don't let it control you. It's the anchor in the storm, the breath in the argument, the wisdom in the heat of conflict. The more you train yourself to seek it, the more naturally it comes. And when it does, you'll find that overreaction no longer has the same hold on you. You'll respond with clarity, patience, and strength, because perspective is power. And it's available the moment you choose to step back and see the bigger picture. Being unbothered is a discipline, not a personality trait. It's not something you're simply born with. It's not a natural indifference or a passive detachment from life. It's something you build day by day, thought by thought. It's a practice skill that comes from choosing peace over chaos, restraint over reaction, and clarity over emotional noise. The people who seem calm, grounded and unshaken by drama aren't necessarily immune to stress or unaffected by conflict. They've just trained themselves to rise above it. In a world that constantly demands your attention, your outrage, and your energy, being unbothered is a quiet act of rebellion. It means choosing not to engage with every slight, not to attend every argument you're invited to, and not to allow someone else's emotional state to hijack your own. That's discipline. It takes self-awareness. It takes the repeated decision to value your inner peace more than your urge to be right, to be heard, or to be vindicated. This discipline starts with learning to pause. Who most of what bothers us doesn't deserve an immediate reaction. That sharp comment, dismissive look, the frustrating email, none of it needs to control your next move. The untrained mind reacts instantly, impulsively. The disciplined mind observes first. It asks, is this worth my energy? Will this matter tomorrow? Am I about to act from ego or from wisdom? The space between trigger and responses were unbothered lives. Being unbothered also means knowing what's a yours and what's a not. Not every problem is your problem. Not every mood is your responsibility. Not every criticism needs to be taken in. When you develop the discipline of emotional boundaries, you stop carrying weight that was never yours to begin with. You become less reactive because you're no longer in the business of managing everyone else's feelings or needing everyone's approval. That's not to say you become numb or disconnected. Quite the opposite. Discipline in this sense allows you to be more present, more thoughtful, more intentional. You don't waste energy on drama. So you have more to give to what actually matters. Your goals, your relationships, your growth. You become steady in a way that others can feel. Your calm becomes contagious. The discipline of being unbothered is also about consistency. You don't just decide to be calm once. You practice it in small, everyday moments. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when a text goes unanswered, when your efforts go unacknowledged. These are all chances to force your mental strength, to prove to yourself that your peace off is not negotiable. It doesn't mean you never feel irritated or upset. It means you don't let those emotions drive your actions or define your identity. It's easy to confuse being unbothered with being emotionless. But emotionless people shut down. Disciplined people stay open, just selective. They feel and respond wisely, but they don't let temporary feelings sabotage long-term values. They understand that every time they stay grounded in the face of tension, they're reinforcing their self-respect. Ultimately, being unbothered is about ownership. You take responsibility for your energy. You stop outsourcing your emotional state to circumstances or people who have no stake in your well-being. You draw a line between what happens around you and what you allow to happen within you. That line is called discipline. And like all forms of discipline, it gets stronger the more you use it. You fall, get back up, and snap. Then you reflect and realign. Slowly but surely, the chaos outside holds less power. The noise fades. And what remains is you. Clear, focused, steady. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Being unbothered is not who you are. It's who you become on purpose.